Hey guys, John Garing here. I thought I would go ahead and do a video instead of doing the advanced tutorial like I have in one of my other videos. I would just do the basic tutorial. So this video is really for those of you who have virtually never played Silent Shark and you're just trying to get a feel for the basic tutorial. Maybe you've tried this a couple times, hasn't worked out. I'm just going to walk you through. I'm going to close down these instructions here. I'm just going to explain everything to you myself. So this will be the basic tutorial scenario. So in the basic tutorial scenario, we have a freighter over here. Here is our submarine. If we click on this down here, it'll always recenter right on our submarine, right? And over here is a freighter. Now, you'll notice you see this freighter right now. Normally, depending on your difficulty setting, you're not going to see the other ships because that's kind of half the fun, is trying to figure out where they're at. But for the basic tutorial and for just an easy difficulty for practicing and stuff, what you can do is you can have this setting up here. Let's see, where is it? Show ship positions. It's right here. You can turn that to always or never or anything like that. Now, in the basic tutorial, it's just forced on. So that's why you can see this ship right now. Now, you notice the game's paused. So the goal of the basic tutorial is to sink the ship. Now, how do you sink a ship? Well, you shoot a torpedo. How do you shoot a torpedo? Well, in the tubes panel over here, you can flood tubes with these switches here, and you can fire the torpedo right here. But how does the torpedo know where to go, what angle to take in order to hit the ship? Well, it knows that from its torpedo data computer that you then have to set. Now, a torpedo data computer is this huge wall-sized machine that they had back then. But really, it came down to these four numbers that you needed to set. You needed to provide to the torpedo where is the target relative to our ship. So let's say if it would be 330, then it would be off in this direction, 330, or where it is. Now you'll notice this gray diamond right here. That's because our periscope is currently up, and any ship that we can see will get this little gray diamond to help us know that really right now the relative bearing is exactly in this direction. So that is where the ship is. So relative bearing is relatively simple to get. As soon as your periscope is up, you can just figure out where a ship is in relative to where you currently are at. Now, the second thing that the torpedo needs to know is what is the direction the ship is headed in. And for that, you need what is called the angle on bow. The idea is, imagine this is the target ship. Where are we in relation to that target ship? So in this case, we would be 40 degrees away from it and kind of off down here. Now, this isn't quite right, because if we use one of these map tools, what we can do is we can see here, of course, cheating. We know it's headed straight east. So if we just drag this line over, this is the direction that this ship is headed in. Now, if we use the angle tool, what we can do is we can drag a line to the center point of our angle right here, and then right here, and then let go, and then we could move in the direction that we want to make the angle. In this case, of course, we're going over to our ship. Now we have the angle in between these two lines. It's 41 degrees. 41 degrees, and that would be the angle on bow right now. So what we can do is, actually, this is actually already correct, 41 degrees. So this angle begins correct to begin with. So that helps the torpedo to know, because the torpedo needs to know what direction is the ship headed in. Where is it now? What direction is it headed in? The third thing that you need to set would be the speed. Now, of course, now we really don't know what speed this ship has. Spoiler alert, and actually it's going to end up being 6.1 knots, but we don't know that. And so in order to figure out the speed, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to wait a bit. You need to mark where you see the ship right now. So later in the advanced tutorial, you're going to learn how to use the speedometer and all that. But of course, right now, we're just practicing, and we're saying we know where the ship is. It's right here. So if we put our timestamp point right over, let's say, the middle of the ship, right here, then what that does is it creates a dot on our map. If we zoom out, we can see it. There's a little dot at the timestamp of 0, because our stopwatch, which if we click up here, we have a stopwatch, is currently at 0. And what we can do is if we wait a few minutes, then we can have a second point. And then we know it was there at 0 and there at, let's say, 3 minutes. And then we could figure out the distance between there to there, and that gives us our speed, which is what we need to do. So we're going to do that. Now, one thing that you cannot forget, otherwise it'll be a very short hunt, is let's lower our periscope, because as you can see here in our detection meter, there is a slight chance that we will be detected if our periscope is up, and this chance will keep growing the longer there's this periscope sticking out of the water. So what we're going to do is we're going to lower our periscope. We're still paused, so that's why it isn't lowering yet. We're going to unpause. We could either hit the 1X, or we could hit play, or we could hit space, which is what I'm going to do. So I hit space. Down goes our periscope, and we can see our detection level here has dropped to 0%. There's no way they're going to find us. So we're now going to wait 3 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and speed up time by clicking over here 10 times. We're going to let it go about 3 minutes, let's say. So that's 1 minute, a little faster, 2, and this is a bit longer than 3. We waited 3.5 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever. It doesn't really matter. 3 minutes 23. And we will put our additional timestamp point right there in the middle of the ship again. So we know it was there at 0, it was there at 3:23. Now we could either manually figure this out with a calculator or whatever. We could use a compass to figure out how far is it from here to there and all of that. But our crew can do that for us by using this line tool. If we drag a line from the one point to the other point, then it will measure that for us. So it will say 6.1 knots. So that, if you recall, that's what we're looking for our third value. We had our relative bearing, we had our angle on bow, now we have our velocity, and the final thing we want is the distance. Now, in the advanced tutorial, you would learn how to use a speedometer, but in this case, we already know our distance because we knew where it was to begin with, and so we can just use our circle tool to go right up here, and we know it's exactly 1,222 knots away, yards away. So we can go ahead and enter that in here, 1,222 yards away. Now you might wonder, what is this yellow thing over here? This yellow thing is where our TDC thinks the ship should be based on how we have it set up. Now you might be wondering, why is it over here? Well, that's because we didn't update the relative bearing. The relative bearing is still back over in this direction, and so 1,200 yards is over here on the left. So what we're going to want is moving it over and change the relative bearing. Now we could, of course, pop up our periscope. We'd see another gray diamond here, but we know it's right there because we're revealing the ships. And of course, the other thing is now it's no longer at 41 degrees. It's something more like, let's just turn it until it's lining up with the line. It's more going to be 63 degrees-ish. So we know the relative bearing, we know the angle on bow, we know the velocity, we know the distance. And that is all we need to know to send our torpedoes flying. And the torpedo then will go for about 300 yards, will be armed, and will then turn toward where it needs to turn to hit the ship that is based on these 4 measurements. So let's go ahead and do it. Let's go ahead and flood one of our tubes. So you'll hear the flooding. You'll see the blinking yellow light in a little bit. There you hear the torpedo tube door open, and we are ready to fire. So we will fire. Before we do that, let me pause. We do have torpedo spread. That would be if you're firing more than one torpedo. You could spread the torpedoes at a certain angle from each other to try and have a better chance at hitting. And we have these 2 dials that are just an additional help. This will show, the own ship one shows at what angle is the torpedo going to be leaving our ship. And the target is at what angle will it likely be hitting the ship. So this looks good. It'll be heading off. It'll be at about a 20 degree off to the what is that, port side, but which is fine. And we can go ahead and fire. So we will unpause the game and we will fire. There's the authentic torpedo sound from the Second World War. And there we see our torpedo going. Now, another thing that's a lot of fun is we have our torpedo camera down here. Do you remember, if we click here, that centers on it? And if we do the torpedo camera, it'll center on the torpedo. Now this music, by the way, is the U.S. Marine Band playing Mars by Holst Planets, and it's the setup to be timed perfectly for the stings of Mars, right as the torpedo hopefully hits its target. That was a hit. So it was a hit. We could pop up our periscope and look at this sinking. Here's the periscope. Let's turn on over. There it is, and it'll be sinking over the course of the next half hour, 40 minutes, something like that. So there you go. That's about all I wanted to show, just to give you a rundown of the most basic functions that you need in order to sink a ship. Now, of course, in order to get the distance, you're not always going to have these reveal ships on. That's what the advanced tutorial video is all about. So check that one out if you want more information. Join our Discord, wishlist the game on Steam, try out the demo, etc., etc. Hope this was helpful, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.